This is a production of World Video Bible School. To God be the glory.
It was the beginning of my 9th grade year. I had moved into a new neighborhood, and one of the girls from my school lived right up the street from me. As a matter of fact, we practically had the same address. And this little girl's name was Haley, and she was very pretty. She was a majorette. Haley was an only child, and it seemed to me that Haley was the center of her parents' attention. It seemed to me that Haley had the latest of everything. Haley had the best clothes. Her parents would try to buy her the best of everything, including would try to buy her the best friends. And I thought maybe now that I lived close to Haley, we could be friends. And she invited me to a party right at the beginning of my 9th grade year, and I was excited about that. I was finally going to go to Haley's house, and maybe I would fit in with the in group of girls. You know, if I happened to go and fit in the rest of my high school years, I could be in with the great girl group. So that night, I got my clothes together, decided what I could wear. I was sure that I didn't have anything as nice as what Haley had, because I had also decided that Haley was the center of her parents' checkbook, because she had every beautiful outfit that I could imagine. Being from a family of 5 children, I couldn't imagine being the center of the universe for my parents. So I was excited, and I was walking down the road, came to Haley's house, met her parents at the front door, and the party was downstairs in the basement. So I went downstairs, and the girls there were kind to me. I wasn't necessarily part of the group, but they were kind, and I was friendly to them, and we were enjoying ourselves until about 9:30. And then Haley's parents decided that they were going to go upstairs. And Haley's parents went upstairs, and we never saw them again the rest of the night. After a little while, the group decided that they wanted to play Spin the Bottle. Now, girls, I don't know if you know what Spin the Bottle is. I don't know if you still play Spin the Bottle. But that night, we put the bottle in the center of the circle, and you were supposed to kiss the guy who the bottle landed on when you spun the bottle. Well, I thought about that, and I thought, you know, really, I didn't want to kiss whoever that bottle landed on. If I was ever going to kiss somebody, it was going to be who I wanted to and when I wanted to, and not because that bottle landed on them. So I decided that I was not going to play Spin the Bottle. I went over and sat on the steps. Remember watching them play. Remember watching the girls going over and kissing whatever guy the bottle landed on. Remember some of the kids deciding they didn't want to kiss in front of everybody else, so they went into the closet. And I sat there thinking, I'm sure I'll never be invited to one of Haley's parties again. But girls, I was also pretty sure that I didn't care. Because you see, sometimes when you make good choices like that, you're going to be considered an outsider. People are going to, the boys would sit over there and look at me and say, what a prude that I was. They would say, are you frigid? They would make jokes about me. And finally, I had just had enough and went home. But you know, when you make good decisions, when you decide to do the right things, there are always going to be someone who will make fun of you. People want to bring you down so many times. So when you make a good decision, a lot of times you're going to be treated like Jesus was treated. When you try to do the right thing. So the rest of my high school years, I was not invited to the drinking parties. I was not invited to the drug parties. I was not invited to the sex parties. They knew that Sheila didn't want any part of that. And you know what? That gave me great freedom in my high school years, because so many times after those parties, I heard what went on at those parties. You know, I could even get up some Saturdays and read about the drunk driving accidents in the paper. I could see a friend of mine who had been raped because she had had something put in her drink. One of my very best friends was sent off the summer of our junior year because she was expecting a baby. And she was sent away for 6 months. Because you see, this is the result of some of those parties that were going on in people's homes. This was in their homes. I even know of homes where parents were providing the alcohol. Parents would say things like, well, I don't want these children drunk driving, so I'll just have a keg at my house. And you know what happened as a result of that, girls? Most of the time, the accidents didn't happen that night. But as those children got older, I read of them in drunk driving accidents. I know of several who have become alcoholics because their parents decided it was safer to give them the alcohol at home. Now, girls, I know that God understands how you feel when you're an outsider. I know this. I know that sometimes you've got to question, is God with me? Is he helping me make these decisions? There were always people who questioned Jesus. Was he the Son of God? Would he do what I've asked him to do? And I'm going to assure you that God is with you, and he will help you through these times. In the book of Mark chapter 9, there is a man who comes to Jesus, and he says, Jesus, I want you to heal my son. My son is having convulsions. He's had those convulsions since he was born. Jesus, please heal my son. And Jesus said to him, if you believe, I can. The father stood there for a moment. He wasn't sure that he really believed. And he said, Lord, help my unbelief. Girls, there are times when you're going to need God to help your unbelief. Do you think Peter ever questioned his faith in Jesus? The Apostle Peter, of course he did. Jesus said to him, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Peter said, oh, I'll never deny you 3 times. But you know what? When that rooster crowed, Peter knew that he had denied Jesus 3 times. He questions his faith. What about when Peter was supposed to come to Jesus walking on the water? And Peter was doing a great job. He believed he could walk on the water. He believed that Jesus was helping him. But for one moment he doubted. And Peter began to sink, didn't he? So it's not unusual, girls, for us to question whether God is helping us with this. It's not unusual, but understand that God says, I will help you through any situation. But the best thing for us to do is try to avoid those kind of situations. And sometimes you get in a bad situation that you didn't intend to. In another incident, I decided in junior high that I would join the Girl Scouts. I thought the Girl Scouts would be fun. Certainly it was wholesome. So for a few months, I joined the Girl Scouts, enjoyed the weekly meetings, enjoyed the crafts and the service projects. But after a few months, we were going to go on a camp out. Oh, I thought a camp out would be fun. We're going to make those s'mores, right, over the fire, and we're going to roast marshmallows, and this is going to be fun. So we went to the camp out, and after all of the counselors went to bed, all of the girls showed up in one tent. And all of the girls decided that we were going to play strip poker. Strip poker? I didn't know what strip poker was. This is where you draw a card, and if you have the lowest number, you take off part of your clothes. And these girls were going to sit around, play strip poker in the tent until everybody was naked. And you know what, girls? I wasn't excited about that. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. So this is another one of those times that I made the choice not to take part. And so the next time something questionable came up, do you think I was invited? No. And was that okay? Yes. And needless to say, I didn't get to stay in the Girl Scouts for very long because I did not want to be a part of those things. And at a lot of our parties, girls, one of the biggest problems is that alcohol is most always involved. Alcohol is the drug of choice for teenagers. From the good, I suppose, good-tasting wine coolers, I cannot tell you, but they look good, don't they? From those fruity wine coolers to the hard stuff, alcohol will short-circuit your brain, girls. New research indicates that alcohol may harm the development of teenagers, of your brain, and too many Americans think that alcohol is a rite of passage, that once you start drinking alcohol, you're beginning to be an adult, and that is so wrong, because when you're young and you are consuming alcohol, it will short-circuit your brain. Your brain is not fully developed yet. When the first drink of alcohol impairs your judgment. You start thinking things are right that are not right. Your judgment becomes impaired. And there are people who started drinking alcohol at the age of 13, 14 years old who have never developmentally matured their brains because they've been arrested. From drinking so much alcohol, the brain has never been able to fully develop. Listen to me, girls. No one who never took one drink ever became an alcoholic. Listen to that again. No person who never took one sip of an alcoholic beverage ever became an alcoholic. If you decide right now that you are not going to touch alcohol, your life will be so much more blessed. The book of Proverbs tells us daughters of the King a lot about alcohol. In the book of Proverbs, alcohol is called a mocker. Why would alcohol be called a mocker? Because once you drink alcohol, everything you ever thought was right and good and pure goes out your mind. It mocks everything that you believe in. Alcohol is called a deceiver. Why? Because your judgment is impaired. You can easily be deceived. It's called violent, will cause you sorrow. It will cause you insecurity. And the Bible even tells us that alcohol will bite you. It can ruin your life, girls. Let me share with you the story of a beautiful young lady that I know. She actually right now is a preacher's wife. And she will share this story with girls on occasion. She was in high school, and she loved being a part of the group. She enjoyed her high school years so much, and up until her senior year, she had never touched a drop of alcohol. And then the senior party came around. She was so excited, and she was invited to the senior party, and she knew that there would be alcohol involved. And she thought, I know there will be alcohol, but I really want to go. And so she went to her father and she said, Dad, please let me go to the senior party. And he said, now, sweetheart, you know that senior party usually has drinking. There are usually accidents after the senior party. I would really like for you not to go. And then she kept pleading, she said. And finally, her dad asked the proverbial parent question. Well, if all your friends were jumping off the bridge, would you? And this little girl said, yes, I want to go that badly, Dad. Finally, he gave in. He said, okay, you can go to the senior party. That night, she got to the senior party, and she said, everyone was walking around with their cans of beer. And she said, you know, I don't think it would hurt if I just carried around a can of beer. I'll never sip it. I'll just have it in my hand and carry it around, and then I'll look like everybody else. So this sweet little Christian girl got that can of beer and carried it around at the party the entire night. Never took a sip. She got home, and she was glad that was over with. And then the days went on, and she had not gotten caught. No one had told her parents that she was drinking at the party, so she felt pretty good about it. And then their annuals came out. And you know how people start writing in your annual. You know how people start saying things about what happened in school. And one young man wrote in this young lady's annual, we are so glad that you came to the senior party and decided to be just like the rest of us. Oh, she read that in her annual, and she was so sorry. Because from now on, this young man would remember her as finally giving in and being like everybody else. And to this day, she regrets that decision. Because now when he thinks of her, that's what he'll think. You know, a lot of things happen in high school, but then when you go to college, partying is even a bigger issue. You know, I went to Tennessee Tech University. Now, girls, don't think that I went there to be an engineer. I did not go there because I wanted to be an engineer. I went to Tennessee Tech University because I looked at the ratio of boys to girls. That's the truth. There were 7 boys to 1 girl at Tennessee Tech University, and I thought, this is going to be fun. And when I went to Tennessee Tech, I did have fun. But remember, girls, years before, I had already decided what kind of person I wanted to be. So partying at Tennessee Tech was a big thing. I was in a sorority, and I was a little sister to a fraternity. And of course, when you're a little sister to the fraternity, they expect you to come to all the parties. And so I went to the parties, never drank, just went and had a good time, did not carry something around so people would think that I was drinking, and just enjoyed myself. At that time, girls, I did think it was okay to be dancing. You know, I used the age-old line, well, if I'm out there dancing, I can't help what somebody thinks about me. Now, that is a line that we use, girls, but it's not really true. And I'm going to tell you an incident that proved that to me. One night I was at a fraternity party. I was out dancing on the dance floor with my future husband. We were at his fraternity house. Other people were out on the floor dancing, and I began to see people getting off the floor, just slowly walking off the floor, and the only 2 people left dancing on that floor were me and my future husband. I looked around and thought that was pretty odd because, I did like to dance, but I was not necessarily the greatest dancer. And I thought, why are these others all going off of the floor? Girls, I turned around and looked, and behind me was one of Stan's fraternity brothers. His name was Al, and Al was in his late 20s. He had been in Vietnam. His fraternity was pretty proud of Al because he had fought in the war, and he had come back to college, and they were pretty proud of Al. But Al was standing behind me with his pants on the floor, his undershorts down, and he was dancing as close to me as he could without touching me. And I was so embarrassed. And I realized that because Al was drinking, he was seeing some things in my dancing that I did not intend to be there. And you know what made me furious? When I said to my fraternity brothers, I do not appreciate this. And here is the answer that they gave me. They said, well, Sheila, Al's just drunk. He can't help it. Listen to me, young ladies. If that's what drinking does, you don't want any part of that. And I used to say, well, I can't help what guys think. But I guess if they're drunk and I'm out there doing my body every way in the world and causing them to lust, yes, I can. So I learned then that being out there dancing is not what I wanted to do. Now we have something that happens at our high schools, even at our junior highs lots of time, very similar to what Al was doing with me, and it's called freaking. And listen to what a principal of a high school in Argyle, Texas recently said. Freaking is not just shaking your booty. This is pelvis to pelvis physical contact in private areas and then moving around. I have no doubt that the current cleavage-bearing dress styles combined with sexually charged dancing could lead to an unsafe environment for students. Excuse me. You think that could lead to an unsafe environment? Well, whatever in the world made you think that? Girls, God made us visual creatures. When we see something we like, we are visual creatures. When Adam was formed, God sent all of the animals by Adam, and he said, Adam, choose one that you think is fitting for you. And every animal that went by, Adam said, no, not that animal, no, not that one. And then God put Adam to sleep. And out of Adam, he created a woman. And when Adam woke up, do you know what he said, girls? Adam said, now you've created somebody for me. The first word he said was, now you have bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And I'm going to submit to you that what he was thinking was, wow, now you have made something for me. Because God made us visually, to look at things, and dancing may be socially acceptable. But girls, for someone who is trying to be a daughter of the King, when people are around drinking and you may be doing something you do not intend to do, and dancing at these parties can cause all kinds of sexual perversion because alcohol is involved for one reason. Let me tell you about a deadly, unofficial graduation party. Girls, does the name Natalie Holloway mean anything to you? I mean, I'm sure you've heard that on the news at some point. Natalie Holloway decided that she was going on an unofficial graduation party with her graduating class to Aruba. They went to Aruba. Several days later, nobody knew what happened to Natalie Holloway. But let me tell you the rest of the story. You see, her classmates have been interviewed. They told a lot about what was happening. They said that Natalie Holloway started drinking when she got there, and she drank every single day. They said they knew that she was in possession of drugs. Now, whether she took the drugs, they said they really never saw her take them, but that she had drugs and that her body was full of alcohol. And they said the last night of their party that they were at a bar. And classmates witnessed Natalie Holloway lying on the bar with young men drinking alcohol out of her navel. Now, girls, what good could ever come from that? What good could ever come from that kind of situation? What did we say? If you're flirting with sexual immorality, you're certainly not fleeing it. And girls, that night, Natalie Holloway disappeared. and no one has ever seen her again. And you know what? There are reports that maybe even she just died of alcohol poisoning. There are new reports saying that maybe she's involved in human trafficking, that once she was totally out of it, that they sold her to someone. And I tell you, we don't know what happened to Natalie Holloway, but you know what I believe, girls? I don't believe she knows what happened to her either. Because that night, she was so out of her mind that she did not know what was happening. Girls, the highest incidence of date rape with an acquaintance occurs in the 12th grade and during the freshman year of college. This has been proven that in the 12th grade and during your freshman year of college, you are much more likely to be date raped by an acquaintance. Now, why would that be? That would be because this is the most partying time of your life. This is the time when alcohol is involved, drugs are involved, and girls, you lose your purity, you lose your inhibitions. Let me ask you this. When people think of you, when people think of your name, do they think of goodness? Do they think of wholesomeness? Or do they think, oh, there's a girl that's easy prey? You see, drinking makes you easy prey. You are easy for some guy who's just looking to have a momentary thrill if you've been drinking, and there are plenty of girls out there willing to do that. Don't you be one of them. Don't be easy prey. And then even when you make the decision that you are going to save yourself for marriage, that you're going to wait until you're married for the person that you love, that you're going to give yourself wholly and completely to him, guess what? There will be guys out there who will decide that you would make a great conquest because you have never been with anybody else. And girls, they will decide that they are going to conquer you. And you do not want to be somebody's conquering because of one night of drinking. So pay attention. Girls, be strong. Recently, there was a young lady who was selling and telling the clerk at the store that she would sell her 4-year-old son to pay a $250 balance that was on a wedding dress. She said, I'll give you my son for this $250 balance. When that young lady went to court, her lawyer said, listen, she did not know what she was doing. She was drunk. This lady was going to sell her 4-year-old son because she was out of mind, out of control because of alcohol. Listen to what one young lady wrote to me. As a teenager, I struggle with doing what's right and living a righteous life. Instead of sticking out as a Christian, sometimes I give in to the world of being a teenager. Now, just a minute. Does the world of being a teenager mean you have to drink? Does it mean you have to have premarital sex? She said, I give in to the world of being a teenager and having fun, even though I want to be a good Christian. Now, girls, listen to me. Let me ask you this. If she gives in to these things, do people think she's a good Christian? And if she keeps giving into these things, when people think of her, will they think of goodness? Or will they think, oh, this one is easy? Guys are always looking for the easy girl. Because you know what? That is not the girl that they will marry. Listen carefully. Another young lady writes, my own personal struggle is keeping away from things that will make me fit in or be fun, even though I know it's wrong. Other advice from a young lady. Don't put yourself in a bad situation, and don't let the world pull you into what it thinks is right when you know it's wrong. Girls, listen. Chill out. Chill out about not fitting in right now. God has great things in store for you, and He wants you to be fit for the kingdom so you don't have to fit into everything right now. Do you remember what happened on Saturday? Well, what do you mean, Miss Sheila? What happened on Saturday? Remember that Friday afternoon, our Lord and Savior was crucified. What was He doing on Saturday? On Saturday, Jesus was just waiting so that Sunday He could rise victorious. And girls, something God asks us to do is to wait. To save our goodness, to save our virginity for the person that we're going to be with for the rest of our life. And you ask me, you say, well, Miss Sheila, how does all of this relate to dating? Well, you see, I'm the first person to say that I believe in dating. I think dating is a great thing. I think dating and dating with integrity is how you become the right person while you're looking for the right person to marry. Decide right now what you're going to do when you're dating. Decide right now how far you're going to go. Purpose in your heart to know what you're going to do. It is a choice, and you make a decision. And don't think that just because a guy asks you out on a date that you owe him anything. Because girls, if you think that, then you don't need to be dating. There are some girls who really do not need to be dating. They're the girls who are the easy prey. They're the girls who say, Miss Sheila, I might just give in. And if you find out that you're going to give in or you think that you are, you don't need to be dating. And you don't need to think that you owe a guy anything just because you're dating. As a matter of fact, if one girl came up to me and said, but he's just so nice to me. And you know what I said to her? Bake him some cookies. Yes, that's something you can do. I'm sure most guys haven't had homemade cookies in a long time. And you know what? Those homemade cookies will last him longer than a 15-minute thrill. And you know what? You won't have consequences for the rest of your life. Because girls, even though you can get forgiven of things, even though God says, I will forgive you, you could bring something into your marriage, a sexually transmitted disease that would last the rest of your life. And even though the Bible says you can be forgiven, the Bible also says that the way of the transgressor is hard. And girls, there will be consequences of those decisions. So decide right now that you do not owe anybody anything just because he asked you out on a date. Now, our definition of dating is a boy meets a girl. They like each other. You might meet his parents. He might meet your parents. You might find out quite a lot about each other before you go on a date together. This is the process of you becoming the right girl who has put the Lord first in her life, and you're waiting for the right guy. Listen to me, girls. Hooking up is not dating. There is not even relationship involved in hooking up. Friends with benefits is not dating. Girls, dating is when you go out on a date. Let me share with you something that a father did. His daughter was about to be 16 years old, and she said, now, Daddy, you said when I was 16 that I could date. And he said, yes, honey, you can, and next Saturday you can have your first date. So she was all excited, and that next Saturday, the man came to the door, her date, and knocked on the door, and she came down the stairs, and he helped her with her sweater. She put her sweater on, and they walked out to the car, girls, and he opened the door for her. Yes, a guy is supposed to open the door for you. Remember, you're a princess. And if he doesn't open the door for you, you just stand there. And if he goes around and hops in his side, and if he drives off, then you let him go, because you didn't need him anyway. If he does not know somewhere in his mind that he's supposed to open the door for you, usually he'll go around to his side and remember, oh yeah, I'm supposed to open the door. And he'll come back around and open the door for you. And her date opened the door for her. They went out to a nice dinner, talked and had a wonderful time. Then they went bowling for a while, and then he brought her home, came around and opened her car door, walked her up to the door, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and said goodnight. And this little girl walked in, and she said, oh, Mama, I had fun. Her mother said, good. A few minutes later, her dad came in. And she said, oh, Daddy, I had such a good time, because you see, her daddy took her on her first date. And you know what he said to his daughter? He said, when you have a date with someone who treats you like I treated you tonight, when you have a date with someone who opens the door for you, who treats you kindly, then they care about you. But girls, if you have a date with someone who is asking you to drink, he doesn't care about you. He cares about what's in it for him, because he knows that once you start drinking, you are not going to care. So look for people who treat you like a princess. And there will be that person if you will be patient and wait. And girls, when you are dating, look for red flags in your relationship. Well, Miss Sheila, what do you mean by red flags? Well, there was a young lady who went to her preacher, and she said, Brother so-and-so, she said, I want to get a divorce. He said, you want to get a divorce? You've only been married less than a year. And she said, yes. But she said, my husband won't come to worship with me. And the preacher said, honey, he won't come to worship with you. Did he come to worship with you before you got married? No, sir, because he said his parents wouldn't let him. Listen to me, girls. That is a red flag. I have a very good friend whose husband told her, on the day we get married, I will go to worship with you for the rest of our lives. He has yet to darken the door of the church building. Now, I hate to tell you this, but guys will lie. They will. And this is a red flag. If he tells you he can't go because his mother won't let him, don't believe that. It is a red flag. Then the preacher said, well, honey, that's no reason for divorce. Well, preacher, I have to tell you this. He drinks. The preacher said he drinks. Did he drink before you got married? Well, yes, but he told me when we got married he would stop. Girls, that's another red flag. And then the preacher said, honey, that's no reason for divorce. And then she sat there quietly and she said, but preacher, he hits me. He hit you. Now the preacher is hurting with her. He said, did he ever hit you before you got married? She said, no, but he did raise his hand like he was going to a few times. The preacher was so sad by now. He said, honey, the time for you to get a divorce was before you ever married that young man. Girls, in your dating relationships, look for the red flags. Make sure that he is telling you truthful things. Look for the red flags. Listen to what someone has told us. I asked several women who were married what advice they would give you about dating. And listen to what Angie says. Angie says, be mindful of where you first come in contact with the person you are considering dating. This can tell a lot about the type of person that he is. Was he at a drug party? Was he at a drinking party? Also, past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. What could she mean by that? I'm going to tell you in just a moment. If he has done something questionable, violent, or irresponsible with other girls, then he will do it with you. Not long ago, my son Stan Jr. went to a local middle school baseball game. He was sitting in the stands, and there was a wonderful pitcher on the mound. This young man was known throughout the county. He was a fantastic pitcher. And as Stan Jr. looked around, here was a young lady sitting with an infant. And guess who was the daddy of that baby? The pitcher. The 8th grade pitcher. In another part of the stands was a young lady sitting with a 1.5-year-old baby. Guess who was the father of that 1.5-year-old baby? The pitcher. The same pitcher. Because you see, every girl thinks that this guy is going to love me more than he loved her. Past behavior is indicative of what will happen in a relationship. 2 girls sitting there with babies who would call that 8th grade pitcher daddy. What's wrong with this picture? Girls, pay attention to the red flags. Listen to people who have something to tell you. Listen to your friends because they care about you and they might know something that you don't know. You know, when I went to Tennessee Tech, there was a young man there who was the big man on campus. I mean, he was a senior. Everybody thought he was great. And one day he asked me for a date. And I was excited. I was 17 years old. I was going out with the big man on campus. And we dated for a while. And people told me that he drank a lot. But, you know, he didn't drink when he was with me. So that wasn't a big issue with us. One weekend, he invited me to come home with him. And I went home with him. And we were sitting on the porch in his living room. And he put his arm around me. Simply put his arm around me. But you know what? His hand kept creeping down my shoulder farther and farther. And finally, I just took his hand and put it back up here. And he looked at me and he said, oh, don't worry, Sheila, I wasn't going to touch your boob. And you know what? I said, no, you weren't. And when we got back to Tennessee Tech, I decided that that was not the boy that I wanted to date anymore. Because you know what? I had decided when I was 14 years old that that was out of the question. There was not going to be petting. There was not going to be these things involved. And when he found that out, I knew that I was through dating him. But guess what happened? He dated another girl in my dorm right after we quit dating. She had my very same name, and it was spelled exactly the same way. I guess that didn't cause him any problem. He could say it, and it could be me or her. I don't know. But within 3 months of their dating, that Sheila was pregnant. And do you know what the big man on campus did? The big man on campus joined the army so that he didn't have to accept responsibility for that other Sheila's child. Girls, pay attention to me. Look for the red flags. Ask yourself if the person you are dating or the person that you are considering dating, if your children grew up to be just like him, would you be proud? Would you be proud for him to be the father of your children? Would you be proud for him to raise the children who are going to be children of the King? Girls, look for the red flags in your relationships and understand who you are and what you are, a daughter of the King.
This is a production of World Video Bible School. To God be the glory.